And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Thursday early evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. There are two brand name famous movies, one more famous than the other, that were released on this day. Sorry, this thing is like flickering back and forth. On this day, 1987, 38 years ago today, March 6th, 1987. The biggest movie released that day. The most iconic, legendary, franchise starting, a big hit movie with 3 sequels. Released today, March 6, 1987, was Richard Donner's OG Lethal Weapon, starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. A slightly more obscure film, which was not a franchise, nor could it ever have been a franchise, also opened March 6, 1987. But unlike Lethal Weapon, which was a big hit, not just with audiences, but with critics, you go on Rotten Tomatoes, the score is higher than you would expect for what amounts to a high velocity, blow shit up real good, let's kill a lot of bad guys kind of an action movie. A movie that also came out March 6, 1987. That actually had a lot of good buzz. There were people in the industry chattering about it. It was expected to potentially be an Oscar contender. Some people in the world of 1987 were whispering, we love what the director did with this. The period details are incredible. The performances, the atmosphere, yada, yada, yada. Film came out. In some corners, it received strong reviews from major critics, but in others, fell flat, and it did not ignite at the box office. It is one of those 80s classics, such as, for example, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, that found its audience on home video and cable. The movie I'm going to talk about, released 38 years ago today, is Sir Alan Parker's, my favorite horror film of all time, Angel Heart. An adaptation of the novel Falling Angel by William Jortsberg, a book that I have not read, but my sister read it after many times seeing the movie, and she thought the book was fantastic. I don't know if she necessarily preferred the book to the movie. They kind of go in a slightly different direction, but from what she told me, from what I could gather, it's a pretty straightforward and direct adaptation. This is not like the adaptation of Bernard Malamud's The Natural, where the filmmakers, as much as I love that movie, Barry Levinson and Robert Redford, they took the whole point of the book and basically blew it up. They turned it on its head. You know, in that case, the idea of the book was, if you lack character, it doesn't matter how much talent you are, you're a loser. And in the world of the movie, none of that even comes into play. Even though 90% of the movie is the book, the entire thrust is, it's all different. But Angel Heart, a pretty straightforward adaptation of Jortsberg's novel. And it appeared on my radar, not really for a very good reason. I used to watch The Cosby Show. Lisa Bonet was really, really hot. Even my 12-year-old self could say, wow, she doesn't look like anybody that I have ever seen. And I read somewhere, or maybe somebody told me, that she took her clothes off in this film. I humbly apologize. But that was my primary motivation for renting this film when it hit VHS. Sometime in like the latter portion of 1987, maybe into 1988. I knew nothing about the movie. I knew there was a controversy, and my next door neighbor told me about, I don't know if it was the Emmys. It could have been the Golden Globes. It could have been the Emmys, where there was this kind of show-stopping moment where the cast of The Cosby Show went on stage, and they were all wearing these kind of sweatshirts with a letter X on it. And then Lisa Bonet went on stage wearing a shirt that had an R on it. And that was making a joke about the controversy with this film, which was that when Sir Alan Parker submitted his director's cut for the MPAA, at the first pass, the movie was rated X. And this was a time where an X rating was very much stigmatized, and it meant that the film could not get a conventional release. So Parker didn't really want to play ball with the MPAA. He thought Jack Valenti was a sack of shit, quite frankly. And almost every New York University professor, about 7-8 years later, give or take, after Angel Heart, nobody had anything nice to say about the MPAA because they were just censoring artists, and they said, well, it's for the parents. Hey, go fuck yourself. Well, what parents? These people are making movies. They're not making the movies for parents. They're artists. They're trying to entertain. But anyway, nobody thought the MPAA was really doing good work. I didn't know a single professor or anyone at New York University that had anything nice to say about the MPAA. But Alan Parker, in the business, you got to turn in an R-rated cut. He took out 10 seconds of a sex scene involving Cosby Show's Lisa Bonet. And the next pass through, the movie was rated R. Now, there were certain major critics that got it right away and loved this movie. I believe it was Jack Anson in Newsweek who gave it a rave review. And I don't know about Time Magazine, but Roger Ebert was an enormous fan. Ebert loved everything about the film. He loved Mickey Rourke, plays the lead in this film, Harold Angel. He loved Mickey's performance. He liked the fact that Bobby D, Mr. De Niro himself, as Cyphre, the character who hires Mickey's Harold Angel to do a job for him. De Niro has dark hair, slicked back, and a neatly trimmed beard. He looks like his old buddy Martin Scorsese from that era. If you've seen pictures of Scorsese circa mid to late 1980s, he has the dark hair, slicked back, and the beard. And Scorsese kind of looked a little bit satanic in that era. And De Niro was clearly wink, wink, wink at his pal Scorsese. I don't think that look would have happened if Martin Scorsese had not, also if Scorsese hadn't started work on Last Temptation of Christ. There was all of this stuff that went into De Niro's presentation, his manner, even his speech patterns are a little different in the world of this film. So Angel Heart is a period piece. It starts off set in the Brooklyn of 1955. And somebody like me, a screenplay that I wrote way back when, which nearly got made, again, 26 years ago, is about the Brooklyn Dodgers. And my script is entirely set in Brooklyn, the end of September into October. I think this movie is supposed to start in like January or February of 55, because we just know it says Brooklyn 1955. That's a title card. So Harry Angel is a private investigator. He's more clever than he appears to be. He's smarter than he lets on. And Mickey Rourke's kind of lazy style at certain points with the way he delivers lines, it's as if he is ingratiating himself with people. He's deliberately getting people to drop their guard because they don't think that he knows which end is up. And he is actually very clever. He is smarter than he seems to be, smarter than his presentation would suggest. So he starts off in Brooklyn and he takes a job from a guy called Cyphre, and that's the De Niro character. And it seems like a routine missing persons case. And the movie, for the first almost hour, if you're dropped in on it, there's some creepy stuff, there's a murder, but it feels like a detective noir. This could be a Body Heat, a Chinatown. It could be that. But there is just a sense of menace and the slightest hint that there might be something supernatural going on here. And a musical score by Trevor Jones, who you could Google him. He did a lot of memorable, just great musical work and accompaniment in films such as Last of the Mohicans. But he worked feverishly right around this time frame, like circa early 80s to mid 90s. He worked feverishly. His soundtrack for this film is extraordinary. I'm not even going to mince words. It is one of the great soundtracks, and the kind of haunting title theme, which starts to play early in the movie. You feel like there's something with this tune that is going to actually come into play in the world of the story, that it's not simply a really cool soundtrack accompaniment. And it ends up, working out that way. So somewhere as we approach the halfway point of the film, it takes a turn into the supernatural, and it begins to function as a horror film. There are real world elements taking place as the supernatural shit is going on. And no matter how many times you see this movie, there is so much to chew on. There is so much to take in. And there are so many mysteries to try and unravel. I'm not sure that Sir Alan Parker even figured it all out. It's like the old joke with Humphrey Bogart when he was doing, I think, The Big Sleep in the 40s. He asked the director, was it Howard Hawks? I forgot. It was a big filmmaker. He asked the director, do you even know who committed this particular murder? And the director said, no, I don't know. Let's ask the author of the book. And they supposedly called Raymond Chandler, and he said he didn't know either. So there is precedent for not being able to figure everything out. Angel Heart captures a mood. It captures a mood, a sense of time and place and space and atmosphere that has never been equaled as far as I'm concerned. And so little adorable 14 or 13-year-old me who rented this movie just because Lisa Bonet is gorgeous and somebody told me she got naked, I ended up not really being that excited about when you finally get to the sex scene, because it's not a conventional sex scene. It is a very disturbing and fucked up, no pun intended, sex scene. I immediately thought this was like top 5 best films I'd ever seen. I went in with the whole wrong idea, but the atmosphere, the setting, the costume design, the production design, and that creepy as hell musical score by Trevor Jones, it had me into it from the first minute. I mean, even the opening credits sequence, there appears to be a dead body and a figure walking towards the camera, but he's so far off in the distance you can't tell. Is that supposed to be the De Niro character? Is that Cyphre? I don't know. And who's the dead body? Who is that? No idea. There's a cat running around. It's just like there is a level of gloss, and there is also an awful lot of grime and a lot of really sweaty, dirty, nasty people as the story moves from the kind of cool, and in the case of the world of the film, there's a lot of snow, of New York, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's upstate New York, Coney Island. There's a great scene at Coney Island. Really, the last light moment in the film is an encounter that Mickey, as Harold Angel, has with a guy who's just kind of sitting there getting a little sun, even though it's kind of chilly, and he has a conversation with the wife. But there is a lot of detective work. There are plenty of films which are ostensibly about private eyes supposed to investigate stuff, and they don't really seem to do very much investigating. There's a lot of exposition, and that's how they go from place to place. But in the world of Angel Heart, Harold Angel actually does a lot of investigating. And the way the movie was promoted, if you look at the poster, you Google right now, you could find what I'm telling you. The movie was promoted with the tagline of, Harry Angel is searching for the truth. Pray he doesn't find it. And that's a pretty good summary, because you may take a job and you might say to yourself, I'm getting paid a lot of money, and Cyphre gives him a lot of money, and then he gives him an additional $5,000 to keep him on his hands. Some unfortunate stuff has happened. I hope you don't get popped for that murder, because I know you didn't do it, but here's $5,000 to kind of, make it a little easier to swallow the fact that you're going to be questioned by the police probably, and I hope your alibi is solid here. But he continues to investigate, and he appears to be the kind of person who will push and push and push, even at a point in time where he's being threatened and told, back off. There's too many dead people around you, Mr. Angel. This can't be good. The old turn around, walk away. There aren't actually moments where characters tell him, well, there is one towards the end, but he is genuinely curious, because it's almost like his mettle is being tested. He needs to find this guy. It's a missing lounge singer whose name is Johnny Favorite. He was a pretty successful crooner before the war and returned home kind of a virtual zombie, or at least that's the story that we're told in the world of the film. And there is a lot of imagery indicating hell and how hot it probably is down there. And what would one do? What would one have to do to actually end up in hell? How bad do you have to be? How evil do you have to be? And the world of this film, Mickey Rourke, he didn't get to play that many leads in high quality films. In this era, He plays a lead in Year of the Dragon, a Michael Cimino film written by, at the time, a very young Oliver Stone, even before he did Platoon. And in that movie, Mickey plays older. He plays a guy who's probably supposed to be in his mid-40s, and Mick was still very young. He was early 30s at the time. He has a lead in a movie called Johnny Handsome, which was after Angel Heart. He did a boxing movie called Homeboy. He's in Barfly with Faye Dunaway, which was based on a book by Charles Bukowski. It's pretty autobiographical or semi-autobiographical from Bukowski. And he did a movie with Bob Hoskins and Alan Bates called Prayer for the Dying. He was very, very busy. And of course, 9.5 weeks with Adrian Lyne the previous year before Angel Heart. But this is his best performance. I remember in 2008 when The Wrestler came out, a friend of mine actually appeared in that movie. There was a scene where the wrestlers, including Mickey's character, are signing autographs at, a local college or something like that. And a guy that I used to work out with was sitting at a table, like supposed to be sitting at a table near Mickey. And he always talked about they shot more than, it looks like it's 2 seconds, he was only in the movie for a couple of seconds. But like that scene was a couple of days worth of shooting. And he said, Mickey seemed like a really cool guy. Seemed like kind of guy you'd want to, Cliche City, have a beer with. But there were people clamoring for Mickey to get and end up winning Best Actor for that. And he didn't. But for my money, as much as I appreciate what he does in that film, this is his best performance. He somehow makes us care about Harold Angel, who is really not presented as that great of a guy. But there is something in his eyes, there is something almost a little bit innocent as we see him get deeper and deeper into what appears to be almost a living hell and a hellscape, first of New York City and then of Louisiana, where it feels like it's 100 degrees with oppressive humidity all the time. And we want him to succeed because he is trying. He might cut some corners, but it doesn't appear to be, he's not doing anything. As he points out to De Niro's Cyphre, all I know is this guy is running around bumping off everyone he used to know. More and more, it's me who's on the line for it. And I remember a quote from Roger Ebert's review of Angel Heart, which I encourage you, if you've seen the movie and you like it or don't like it, or if you are just interested in seeing it. Ebert's review it's one of his best reviews. And I've read hundreds and hundreds of pages of material from Roger Ebert over the years. What's great about it is he gives you just enough information to get you excited to see the film. It doesn't spoil anything. But the way he describes Mickey's performance as Harold Angel, he said, Rourke occupies this film like a violent, unmade bed. He looks unshaven, unwashed, hungover, and desperate. And this is at the start of the film, before everything goes wrong. And that's pretty accurate. His character seems strung out and at the end of his rope pretty early on. He really isn't, but he has the desperation of a man who is trying to maybe make more of himself than he has. He's still a young man. I think Harry is supposed to be, maybe he's supposed to be 35, and Mickey in real life was not even as old as that. But the presentation, he always has a little bit of a stubble. He always looks sweaty. He does look like maybe he ought to hop in a shower, bro, whatever. But he is just going to continue to push forth into this investigation to figure out what the hell happened to this guy called Johnny Favor. Where is he? Well, he's dead. But a lot of people tell him that Johnny Favor is dead, but nobody can confirm it. We think he's dead. If he's not dead, he's dead to me. Well, that doesn't really help. And then there's kind of a running gag with the word vaguely. Do you know this person vaguely? Well, how about you? Vaguely. And the word gets said to him on 3 separate occasions. And then he's having a meeting with De Niro in a world of the film. It's actually a pretty incredible scene where De Niro eats an egg, and he does it in almost a kind of a horrifying sort of way. But Rourke asks Bobby D a question. He said, do you know this woman I'm supposed to talk to named Cruzmark? Do you know her? De Niro, with those eyes, they flash. He knows more than he's telling, but he's going to play dumb. He goes, vaguely. Mickey kind of looks around and he leans in almost in a threatening way. He says, Mr. Cyphre, let me tell you something. I'm getting a little fed up with fucking vaguely. All right? Vaguely is tying a noose around my neck and I'm starting to choke. So I'm going to ask you again. Did you know her, or not? And De Niro doesn't miss a beat. He goes, I knew about her, but I never actually met her. And the last time I watched the movie, that line cracked me up because he used the word vaguely the way that it's supposed to be used. He knew her vaguely. He knew about her, but he never actually met her. He was the only character in the story that used that word precisely the way that it's supposed to. Getting a little fed up with fucking vaguely. That's a line I wish I could use in real life, but I never have. Before I forget, Angel Heart is streaming on Paramount Plus. I think that Paramount handled the distribution when this movie was in theaters. It's also on that app that you can get with a library card called Canopy with a K. Bill Harris, who was a film critic who also was in a TV show. I think he co-hosted the show with Jeffrey Lyons. It's interesting that there were a number of thumbs up, thumbs down type TV shows, Siskel and Ebert being the most famous. But I think that Jeffrey Lyons and Bill Harris had a show called Sneak Previews. I know that Bill Harris was on a TV show that was not Siskel and Ebert. And he described this film. It's like Chinatown meets The Exorcist. And that is another right on the numbers. Like, you can't describe this film any better because it has the film noir elements of Chinatown. You know, with the kind of weird family dynamics. She's my sister. She's my daughter. She's my sister and my daughter. And Jack screaming, stop lying to me. How many moments in that movie does Jack Nicholson scream, stop lying to me? A lot. But it has the trappings of the classic noir with the weird family dynamics. And what's the story with this guy and this woman? What's happening? Is that the sister? But then it has the supernatural elements, the horror film elements of the conventional horror movie. Good guys and bad guys. God and the devil. Who's going to win? I don't know. Is there any chance for a happy ending here for Harold Angel? Will he find the man that he's looking for? What if, as the tagline says, what if he needs to not find him? What if his best course of action is, you know what, I'm going to just turn around and run in the other direction and I ain't going to look back. I've had quite enough of this case. Thank you very much. But Angel Heart is a great movie. It's just seamlessly blends genres that you wouldn't think would work together. Film noir, period piece, supernatural horror, thriller, mystery. All of those elements are in this one film. And somehow it all coalesces. It all blends together beautifully. And it is in the 80s, and this is a movie where the Rotten Tomatoes score keeps going up as new fans find it. And if you also go on YouTube, you'll see a lot of movie reactors that a lot of people recommended this. All of the movie reactors who checked this film out for the first time, they all raved about it like, holy shit, how had I not heard of this movie? It is a genuinely great film, beautifully acted, perfectly directed from the late, great Sir Alan Parker. And man, De Niro and Mickey, they had their issues publicly. It was more that Rourke had issues with De Niro. He said, Bobby fucked me over. I was supposed to be up for a role in The Irishman, and I think he put the kibosh on it. But then De Niro said, I love Mickey. I don't know what he's talking about. But then they seem to have squashed their beef. So, that's good. I don't like the idea of people, especially because Rourke idolized De Niro when he was on his way up. So it seems that they squashed their beef because Rourke said something on social media, said, you know what, Mr. De Niro, you're okay, or words to that effect. But Angel Heart is a great movie, bombed at the box office, then started to build a cult following, and people discovering it now. I guarantee you watch this movie for the first time and you will be blown away by how good it is, how scary it is, how exciting at various points, and just how much of a mind fuck. Like, what the hell just happened here? A great movie in every sense. 38 years old today. Angel Heart, directed by the late, great Sir Alan Parker, starring Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, Lisa Bonet, Charlotte Rampling, and Dan Florek. This has been episode 461 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Thursday evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.